Welcome to Garden-Wise Adventures. My name is Malie, and today it's time for another Plant of the Week video. And this year we're concentrating on herbs. And today I wanted to talk about my very favorite, all of them are my favorite, but one of my very favorites, Chaste Tree. Now, Chaste Tree, the scientific name is Vitex Agnus castus. It's a small tree or a shrub, depending on where you live. But I live here in Utah in zone 6/7, and it's counted as a small shrub. Sometimes you can even grow it like a perennial. So let's look at my chaste tree, look at some pictures of the way it looked a little while ago, and look at the way it looks now. And then we'll talk a little bit about how to grow it and how to use it. So we're in August. The bloom cycle on my chaste tree is pretty much almost over. But we will get sporadic blooms, especially on this variety, all the way through the end of the season. Last year I had blooms on this plant in October. Now that starts blooming heavily in June, and I'll show you some pictures of what it looks like in full bloom, and it's absolutely gorgeous. It's a very, very favorite of bees, butterflies, and all the little tiny pollinators. There are still small panicles of flowers on here. Got another bud ready to open right here. And then right here we've got the flowers at the top, and the seeds are starting to develop down below. Now on this one, the seeds are a little more developed, but by the time the winter hits, the seeds turn a dark brown and are really, really hard. And they kind of have a peppery flavor. It's kind of a flavor between pepper and sage, a very, very strong sage. Now another name for this plant is monk's pepper. It's been used for thousands of years medicinally, and it can also be used edibly. You can actually use these little berries as a replacement for pepper. Now, it's not going to have the exact same taste as pepper. Like I said, it has a little bit of a sagey overtone to it, and it doesn't have a real spicy flavor to it. And as I've said in all my previous videos, I don't go over medicinal uses for plants in my videos because I'm not an expert on it and I don't want to lead anybody wrong. But there are a lot of excellent resources out there about using Vitex medicinally, and if you're interested, definitely go look those up. But be sure, if you ever look up any plant to use medicinally, make sure you use reputable sources. Now, from what I've read, the entire plant is edible, including the roots. But from what I understand, most people only use the seeds. Now, the entire plant is highly aromatic. I love the smell of it. The leaves smell beautiful. Let's show you what the leaves look like. This is the leaf, very, very aromatic. And the flowers don't necessarily have their own scent. They don't have a floral scent. It's more the same scent as the leaves, but they're absolutely gorgeous. Now, I first started growing chaste trees in Southern California because you can't grow lilacs in Southern California. So it was suggested that I try a chaste tree because the flowers resemble lilac flowers. They don't have the same scent, and they are a very different shrub and a different tree, but they are absolutely gorgeous. And they flower midsummer, like I said, from June until the frost hits. Growing them is really quite easy. They don't like really, really wet roots. They're very drought tolerant. Mine rarely gets watered. And I actually just was on a trip to Las Vegas to visit my sister. And as we went on a walk through her neighborhood, there were a lot of people who had chaste trees in Las Vegas. So they can tolerate quite a bit of heat and quite a bit of drought. Now they do like sandier soils and they do need full sun. Now, the hardiness zone is what made me wait for a long time before I planted chaste trees in Utah. I thought they were only hardy in zones 7-9, but it turns out they are a lot hardier than that. They're actually hardy down to zone 5 if you use the hardier varieties and understand that they will likely die to the roots. Now, I've grown chaste trees on this property for probably, I think it's been at least 10 years, and my very first chaste tree was really, really good through even cold winters, lasted beautifully, never died to the ground, until one year it did die to the ground. When I looked at the tree, and I'll show you pictures of what it looked like, every single trunk on the tree, and these are multi-trunk trees, had split wide open. Some of them had split so far you could see through the trunk. Now, what I feel happened at that point is in Utah, we'll get some really late freezes after really warm spells. So it'll warm up in April and May, plants will start growing, the buds on that tree had started to swell, and then we hit below, I think it was about 18 degrees, and everything froze. Now, a lot of plants can tolerate that and keep going here in Utah, but I think that's what split the chaste tree. I think the wood was just weak enough that when it froze, it just split the wood. Now, I did not realize that that tree would probably grow back from the roots, so I pulled it out. And then I planted a new one. This is a Shoals Creek variety, which is supposed to be one of the more hardier varieties. It was good the first 2 years. The third year, it did the same thing. All the branches split and it looked like it had died to the ground. So I cut it down to a stump, left it to pull out later, and lo and behold, it grew back. And this is the second year of it growing back. Last year, it did not die to the ground again. Now, there are certain varieties that you actually use them for the ability to grow back from the roots. Blue diddley is one of them. In milder climates, it will grow to a larger shrub, but in colder climates, it will die to the ground every year and grow back to be about a 6-foot shrub that same year. Die to the ground again and do that same thing over and over and be just a really good smaller version of what I have. So as you can see, chaste trees are really adaptable. You can grow them in many areas of the country. One of the things to be careful of, though, is in milder climates, especially in the south, they actually can become quite invasive. So they are classified, I think it's in Texas that they're classified as invasive. Here in Utah, I don't see the problem for that happening because they're not as hardy here. Now, another thing I like to do is in the fall, I like to cut the berries off. The berries do make a bit of a mess. They turn black, they fall off. So right around November, when everything has died back, I'll just cut all the dead flower heads that have the berries on it and cut those off. Now, for several years, I did harvest those berries. I never ended up using them. I tried giving them away one year and I only had one taker. So now I just throw them away. So if you like to harvest it, the end of the year after it's gone dormant is the best time to harvest it. And then I prune mine in the spring. I used to like to prune mine to a beautiful structural shape so that in the winter I would have that gorgeous structure to look at. But now that I realize that it'll likely die to the ground, all I do is I cut out some of the crowding branches at the base. So it can be pruned any way you like. It can be grown in dry climates. It can be grown in wetter climates as long as the roots don't stay too wet. And just watch the invasiveness in warmer climates. Other than that, it's an amazing plant to grow. And I'd love to hear your experiences with chaste trees. Have you been growing them? What area of the country are you from? And what are your favorite ways to use it? So hopefully this video has been helpful for you. If it has been helpful, I hope you like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and go have a wonderful garden adventure.